Okay, so welcome back. We were discussing about histogram equalization in detail in the last lecture, and today we are going to start with something which is slightly similar but different from the histogram equalization concept. But just to recap, what is histogram equalization? As the name suggests, we are trying to equalize the histogram, make the histogram more or less uniform so that image looks better. Okay, so don't forget that if image is started looking worse, you can't do histogram equalization much. Okay, so you have to move and do something else. Okay, and the most important part of histogram equalization is this formula, this crisp formula written here. Okay, so x is the histogram of image x. Okay, normalized histogram, of course. C of x is nothing but the cumulative density function or cumulative sum of your normalized histogram, and then basically y is related to x. So y and x are histograms. Okay, if I made any mistake in the previous lecture, just make it very clear. Y and x are histogram. Y is the histogram of the output image, x is the histogram of the input image. Okay, so the relation between y and x is nothing but related by cumulative density function of x. Okay, so you first create cumulative density function of x and then you feed in x there, you get y. Okay, and then you get basically a contrast stretched image which is really equalized in histogram. I mean, ideally, but not really we get that perfect uniform shape, but closer towards that. Okay, now let's move on. So we started with this discussion in the previous class. Okay, histogram specification. So here the concept is like I have two images and I have one image which has a very good histogram and its cumulative density function is more or like a ramp. Okay, like the dream function. So I can use that function and derive a transfer function based on that function. Okay, and by doing that I'm trying to match the histogram of one image with an ideal image. Okay, and then thereby improving the histogram of this bad image. Okay, so one good image, one bad image. Good in the sense like its histogram is more or like looking perfect. Okay, so I take the histogram of the good image and use it for correcting the histogram of the bad image. That is the concept. Okay, so I like to put it this way. I have an I of xy. Okay, and I want to make it j of xy, and j of xy is made in such a way that I'm going to use histogram of some other image. Okay, so in this case always remember I have two images. Okay, so you are going to map histogram of one image to the other, and the entire process looks like this. I take the first image, I do histogram equalization, and more or less we can call that image as a uniform image in terms of histogram, right? Because I will have uniform distribution of the histogram. Okay, so once I make this uniform image, I can apply something like inverse histogram equalization, which is actually making use of the histogram of the ideal image, and then I come up with something like this. Okay, so forget about all this. Okay, so what essentially I am trying to do is this. Okay, so I am going to match the cumulative distribution functions between two different images. Okay, so I have a j of xy which is the good image, I of xy which is a bad image. If I do histogram equalization on both sides, I can sort of try to equate between them, and then I try to make this guy, this ci, I will modify this ci so that I of xy will start to look like j of xy. In mathematics it looks like as simple as this. J of xy can be obtained by an inverse formula, but actually we are not doing like this. Okay, so we have something like minimization between cumulative distribution of first image and the second image, and then try to make them closer. Okay, and then you will come up with a new cumulative distribution function which is somewhere in between the two images and use it for correcting the image. Okay, so I'll try to put it this way. Sorry. Okay, I'll try to put this way. Okay, it's something like I want to put this way. So you have one image, let's call it as I1. Okay, I1 of xy. Okay, second image I2 of xy. Okay, and this is my bad image and this is my good image in terms of good histogram. When I say good histogram, is something like its cumulative function should ideally look like a ramp, right? So this is input intensity 0 to whatever 255, let's say, and this is also 0 to 1 or 255, whatever number, and it looks like more or less ramp. So how shall I go about it? So the first step in this case, I'll put it here. So first step in this case is to find out this guy, exactly that. So I have the C of I1 of xy, okay, and 2 C of I2 of xy, okay, and then I find an error between them, okay, C of I1 of xy minus C of I2 of xy, okay. So basically the error between them, okay, it can be absolute error or it can be mean square error, no problem. And what you essentially find out is how close I can make C, basically the cumulative distribution function of this guy, how closer you can make it to this. And by doing this you will get a new function, okay, some new function which is let's say I say C mod of xy, okay, and this will be used to convert image I1 to look like image I2. So finally I will just put it here, sorry for the messiness. So maybe J of xy, the final image will be something like C mod of I1 of xy. So all objective is to find the C mod, okay, that transfer function. So how do I find this transfer function is using this expression. So during the hands-on you will get a better understanding of this, but I want to make it very simple. I mean, if you are confused here, so I have two images. One image is a bad image which I want to improve. I have a very good image. I will take the histogram of that very good image and histogram of the very bad image and try to make them equal, okay. So that is objective. How shall we go about it? We will discuss in the hands-on in more detail. I already explained it, but if it's still not clear, we will discuss more in the hands-on. So this is known as histogram specification, okay. I hope it is very clear to you. So I will just quickly show you an example, okay, but don't take it like we will discuss more in the hands-on session part, okay. So let me just quickly run this, okay. So, okay. So here is an example, okay. So I have a CT image. If I take another image which is having a different histogram and apply that histogram to this image, it looks like this, and is not it really good because you are able to see the texture in between which was not visible in this image, okay. So the whole process is, okay, let me just put it, I will show you what are the images, okay. Subplot of 1 2, okay. Let's have 4 images. Okay, so this is how it looks like. This is the original image, and this is the second image which is having a very good contrast, which we discussed in some of the classes earlier, right. So what I am actually doing is take the histogram of this and trying to make it as closer to the histogram of this, okay. So once I am able to achieve that, use that transfer function, and then I transform this image to look like this, and it's really interesting, right. I mean, these sort of concepts are where image processing is really becoming very, very handy. And in many times it's extremely useful in many applications. So for in this example, I'm trying to see the texture in this image more clearer, which is not very visible here. Even histogram equalization may give you something closer to this, but probably this is better than histogram equalization. So we will play with all these images during the hands-on session. Going back to the lecture, okay, so this should be clear to you by now, and if not, we will discuss more in details in the hands-on session. So histogram equalization is something like you are trying to equalize the histogram of the image with there's no reference there. All objective is to try to make the histogram uniform, okay. But histogram specification is something like I have another histogram and I want to base my current histogram on that histogram, okay. So you want to really make this bad image histogram look like a good image histogram, and that is why the name specification. You can specify the histogram, okay. And yeah, this is the last topic for this week, okay. And it's not the least topic definitely, because gamma correction is something which is there throughout. I mean, you may be not knowing it explicitly, but it is always there at the background doing for you. Even when I transmit this video over online to you, there is a lot of gamma corrections happening between my source where I'm recording this to the display that you're viewing it, okay. So you won't understand that by wording when I say something like that, but I will have a very good demo here, okay, and then we will actually understand this better, okay. So what exactly is gamma correction? So as we can see here, so gamma correction, or often simply gamma, okay, is a non-linear operation, because linear, when we say, is a straight line, right? If I plot the output intensity versus input intensity, okay, output image intensity versus input image intensity, if it is linear, then nothing will happen. But gamma means it has the shape, some exponential shape, and based on that you really change the input and output intensity. So there's a non-linear relationship, okay, from the input to the output, okay. And this is also important, okay. So you are really decoding the luminance. So in the case of grayscale image, it is just intensity. There is nothing like luminance value there, because grayscale has only one value, right? Just the intensity. But if it is an RGB image, it's a color image, then you need to convert that RGB into luminance, okay. So we will talk about that when we study about something like compression, okay. So I'm not going to introduce that now. So RGB image, you have to convert that to something like luminance and related luminance, chrominance and all. So they call it as so what I was saying is, actually we need to convert that RGB image into something like YCBR CR, okay. So the luminance and the chrominance components. So it is something like, if I see the Wikipedia, for example, you have something like this, okay. So YCBCR, okay. So RGB has to be converted to this. Y component is something like the brightness component, and CB and CR are the color components, or difference of color components they call, okay. Some people call it as YUV also, okay. So by converting RGB to YCB or CR, we get the brightness component separate, and then I will be working on the brightness component. I will give gamma correcting on the brightness component and improving the image. So I think this will clearly show you, okay. So this is RGB image of this particular guy, okay, red, green, blue component, something like filters, right? Red filter, green filter, blue filter. And then if I convert this to YCRCB, what you essentially get is, in one component I get the intensity part, the grayscale part, okay. So the brightness part, okay. So this is more sensitive to the brightness of this particular image. And then I get in some difference of colors, okay. CR and CB, chrominance in red and chrominance in blue, what's exactly that means. So this is a color vision, and this is the brightness part of it, okay. So a lot of these interesting concepts exist actually in image processing, and we can't cover all of them, but some of them, as and when it comes, we can always go back and do something like this, okay. So whenever I talk about grayscale, because most of the time we'll be working on grayscale images only, but it is applicable to RGB also. Only thing is that whatever we are working on in the grayscale part, you should try it on the Y part of the RGB image. You convert that to a YCRCB component and then work it on the Y part, okay. So now coming back to the gamma correction. So this gamma correction is done on the intensity in the case of grayscale, or the Y, the brightness part in the case of a RGB image, okay. And what is it? Okay, I've been blabbering a lot of things, but what is exactly? Okay, let's see that. So this is the formula, okay. So you are really going to take your input brightness or grayscale intensity value, and you're going to raise it to the power of some gamma, okay. So some value of gamma, and this will really have a non-linear relationship. There is no doubt about it. So V out is a power of V in, okay. So is it square or is it square root is the question about it, okay. Is it increasing or is it decreasing, and how is that relationship, how is it related, okay. So for example, this is gamma equal to 1, that means V out is equal to V in, no change, okay. So some image, okay, this is from Wikipedia, okay, so I should see the reference, right. So now let's actually consider different gamma variations, okay. So this is output intensity, V out, okay, it's shown here. So this can be something like 0 to 255, okay. L is nothing but that 2 to the power of n minus 1, that is what this number is. So you have on the x-axis the same L, and on the y-axis. So this is a generalized representation. So L you can treat it as 256. So 256 minus 1 is 255, which we used to see in many of the examples. Okay. So generic formula is L minus 1, and L is nothing but 2 to the power of n, and n is nothing but the bits. Okay. How many bits you represent. Okay. So this is how the relation between the output and input for various values of gamma. So as the gamma, if it is 25, okay, so if its gamma is 25, the relation between output and input is something like this. Okay. So you see here. Okay, and if gamma is 0.04, it is opposite of it, and if gamma is 1, nothing will happen. That is our ReLU, rectified linear unit, if you remember. Okay, nothing will happen. Input is as it is mapped to the output. Okay, But if gamma is 25, let's see what is going to happen. Okay, so gamma is 25, that means, okay, let me use the pen for easier explanation. Okay, so if gamma is 25, what essentially happen is this many regions in input, okay, these many intensities. So intensity is up to, let's say, some approximately 3L minus 4 is mapped to 0. Wow, okay, so that what essentially happens is, what will happen, there's lot of what, lot of, so it's like putting a threshold here, right? Everything below that is 0. Okay, so image, I mean, it looks more darker, right? Because lot of dark regions will be there. And as you move along this path, what is essentially happening is, so this entire, okay, what do you call, I mean, maybe put here. Okay, so this entire region, okay, so this entire region, right, it is sort of mapped to this guy, I mean, smaller. So basically you had a bigger scope of whiteness in the input, which is confined to a smaller space in the output. So there's a non-linear mapping happening. I mean, if you don't understand anything what I'm saying, or if I'm confusing you a lot, there is a non-linear mapping happening because lot of this is getting mapped to a single region in the output, and similarly lot of this region is getting a smaller region in the output. Okay, I will show you an example so it becomes very clear to you. So same case, if I change the gamma, how does it look like? So for example here, so gamma is equal to 2. As I said, if gamma is 25, you tend to see the image to be lot darker because the thresholding is happening, right? And that's what you're seeing over here. Gamma is a high value, so it tends to look darker. And as I reduces the gamma, it tends to look brighter. Okay, so this is, where is it used actually? So that's a very important aspect that you should see. Okay, so it is quite a lot used in our display unit. So when I transmit an image, this is a very classical example I can show you, is when I project an image onto an overhead projector, right? What I see on my screen, local laptop screen, the things look slightly different when you see it on the projector. I don't know how many of you notice this. If not, next time when your teacher is projecting something on the bigger screen, you just go and see what is there in the laptop. It is something which is slightly different. Okay, the main reason for this is there is a gamma correction happening on your display unit, on your projector unit, which is exactly like this. So it takes the input intensity, it maps to one of these curves. One of these curves will be used and output intensity will be changed. So take this example. If I want to make this image brighter, I should go in this direction. That's what, sorry. That's opposite, right? So I should go in this direction. So this is the brightness direction, because if you go in this direction, these smaller regions are occupying lot of intensities in the output, and that is why it looks more brighter. If you go in this direction, the image looks darker, and that is why when I go from 1 to 2, image look darker. When I go from 1 to 1/3, image looks brighter. Gamma is basically becoming 1/3, that is in this direction, it becomes brighter. Okay, so let's take another example. So this is from the textbook. Okay, so this is an MRI image of fractured spine. Okay, so there's a spine fracture here, and they are using gamma, okay, 0.6 and 0.4 and 0.3. So this is 0.6, 0.4, 0.3, and it obviously looks brighter. Okay, so this is interesting to see, and maybe you can see some textures become clear. Some regions are getting saturated, for example. Okay, so the whole capability of this method is, even though it looks very trivial, is actually you can have a non-linear control on the brightness, okay, on the intensity. I think this is not very clear, but this should be very clear. Okay, so this is the captured image, and if I do gamma correction, so this is on the other side, I need to reduce the brightness. So gamma is higher than 1. Okay, 3, 4 and 5. So this is 3, this is 4, this is 5, and this is sort of the reference image. So if I change the gamma, so when I say gamma equal to 3, 4, 5, you have to go back and see this curve. Okay, so let me just erase this. So gamma is 3 is somewhere here. Okay, so the plot is somewhere here. Now, so if I use that as the transformation, I get something like this. 4 is the transformation, I get something like this, and 5 something like this on same image. Okay, so that is the whole concept. Okay, so This is the takeaway here. So gamma correction is something like a non-linear relationship between input and output. Okay, and there are defined curves as I was showing you here. So you can go along any of these curves, and essentially you transform the image to look more brighter, more darker according to your use case. Okay, and the most important use case I want to show you is exactly I was telling, between the image capturing to image. This one, let me close this. So there's a beautiful app from Stanford. So just note down this link, graphics.stanford.edu/courses CS178 applets gamma. Okay, so have a look at this. Let's try to understand this. Okay, so I have a raw file which is captured by my input device, the camera. So but the camera is having some sort of a non-linear transfer function. So input to output relationship is something like this. This is lower value of gamma, or rather, lower value of gamma. And if you do this sort of, this is happening inside the device. Okay, so I get something like this. So the input original scene was something like this, but the camera is actually having a gamma of 0.56, and the curve is something like this, and it transforms the image to look like this. So when I store it as a JPEG image, it is looking like this. Now I want to actually give it to a display. Okay, so this is a display, and here is where I can play a little tricks. Okay, so even our computer monitor, or if I read the JPEG image, it may be doing something like this at the background. Okay, depending on the software that you are going to use, it may be doing some sort of gamma correction at the background. And now if you see here I am doing a gamma correction on this image. So basically this gamma correction and this gamma correction will will get neutralized. Okay, so 0.56 into 1.8, it will become sort of 1, and that means the outcome of these two will be looking like a bright, it's like a straight line. So if I am able to do that, I am able to reproduce this image on the screen exactly as it is. Okay, the scene is something like this, but my camera changed the gamma to look like this. I inverted it to look like this. Okay, so that means I am able to fully observe the image as it is on the screen. And this is what you need to do when you project it onto a overhead projector from your laptop. When you project it, you can have a finer control on the gamma so that it looks exactly as it looks on my laptop screen. It is possible. Okay, so this is the beauty about it. I suggest you to go to this app and play with it. So let's say I change it. So now you see. Okay, because there is some I'm not able to actually compensate for this exactly as it is. So maybe I'll just try to push it slightly and see whether I can make it perfect. Okay, no, not necessary. Okay, so you see here. Okay, so you can play with it, and even output device also I can change it. Okay, so let's say, this is saturation, this is the other side. Okay, so somewhere, okay, maybe. Okay, so you can play with it. That's whole idea of this gadget. And there you can see, I don't know how many of you have seen this NTSC television camera. So this is basically the correction they are doing it for the entire transmission. Okay, so television studio will see something like this, but when the camera is recording it, it looks something like this. So this is a signal which is broadcasted. Okay, and there is no OS. Okay, all CRT monitors doesn't have an operating system, so it doesn't have any correction here. Okay, so this you are ignoring. But the display unit, the CRT response is something like this. CRT has a non-linear response. Okay, so whatever input it is seeing, it is projected to output in this fashion. Okay, so this is what makes it very interesting. Okay, I will go slow here. Okay, this is a clever trick which is done at the television studio itself, where you are actually applying something like this transformation. It is applied purposefully on your image or your captured video. Okay, this is applied so that the CRT monitor response will automatically have the inverse of it, and you capture the original scene. Okay, so that is the beauty about it. Okay, that is why this NTSC standard is all about. So it has applied some sort of gamma correction at the television studio so that the inverse is happening on your CRT monitor and it gets displayed correctly. Okay, and similarly, a lot of options you can actually play with it. Okay, something which is happening on the PC. Okay, the raw file, the JPEG image looks like this. The Windows will do some correction like this so that the image looks exactly same. So gamma correction, where is it? So coming back to our lecture, so where is gamma correction used? Gamma correction is used a lot in these displays. Okay, it is happening at the back end. You may not be even noticing it. and it's so fun to play with it. Okay, so please visit this website and play with it, and you will see a lot of things. Okay, so that sort of sums up our entire lecture, okay, on point operations. So we talked a lot of stuff, right? We started off with the image additions, image subtractions, then I slowly introduced the histograms, then we did thresholding operation, then we did something like digital negative, which is nothing but inversion of the image. Then we introduced the beautiful concept of histogram, then contrast stretching, which is nothing but histogram, stretching to the entire dynamic range. Then we talked about histogram equalization, which is a very powerful technique. And then we even talked about something like histogram specification, where I specify the histogram. I want to change the original histogram of the image to a custom histogram, okay? And then last not but least, very powerful technique of gamma correction, okay? So that beautifully sums up the entire point operations, and I'm very sure you will be excited to be doing the hands-on. You can even start now, okay? Go back and explore all this stuff. MATLAB, Python, OpenCV has a lot of inbuilt stuff, but I suggest you to do from scratch. You build the program from scratch and understand for yourself how does it happen. I covered almost all Max also, Max background also. So you can now start coding, okay, and enjoy yourself. And that's completes the week 3. Please go through all these videos. A short quiz will be coming up. It will be slightly tougher than the previous case. A lot of thought process has to come, and I'm going to make it tougher by giving you only 2 times you can do the quiz, okay? You cannot do it many times, only 2 times, okay? 1 time can be an error, 2nd time you have to do it, okay? And no excuses from now onwards. You can't say that I missed the deadline and come back to me saying that I missed the quiz. Please don't do that. Do it and enjoy the lectures. You enjoy the journey first of all, and let's meet in week 3, week 3, right? Yeah, week 3 with hands-on on all these aspects.